Good morning and welcome to Sunday Coffee, Art, Design, and Architecture. We are coming to you from Florida, overlooking the gentle lapping waves of the Gulf of Mexico. My motivation for this podcast channel is to broadcast good news stories, interesting people, and food for thought. So pour yourself a nice hot cup of tea or coffee, take a deep breath, get cozy, and enjoy a break for some uplifting conversations. Today's book is The Home Café, Creative Recipes for Espresso, Matcha, Tea, and Coffee Drinks by Lui Chapa, published by Page Street Publishing Company in 2022. Good morning, Asia, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Trisha. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today to talk about all things coffee, tea, and everything in between.
Oh, this is the perfect book for this podcast. I'm so glad that we connected. Let's start with, can you tell the audience maybe a little bit about yourself and how your educational background and how did you come to the Home Cafe?
Well, my educational background is a little different from what you'd assume an author of a coffee and tea book would be. My background is in legal and forensic psychology. I got my bachelor's from UNLV in psychology and criminal justice. And then I got my master's from UC Irvine in legal and forensic psychology. So it's a little bit different from what I'm doing now and from what the book is about. I just have a passion for learning about people and that how that connects to like the criminal justice system. And I still dabble in that today.
You're just dabbling over tea and coffee.
Yeah, although tea and coffee is my profession now, it's become such a big part of my life, bigger than I ever thought it would. And that's all because of the pandemic, honestly.
Well, that was good motivation. Well, my first question to my guest is always the irony. What are you having in your cup this morning?
This morning I have the foamy spiced maple cafe from the Home Cafe. It's drip coffee with a foam that's flavored with maple syrup, clove, and cinnamon.
Well, I've been trying your matcha tea and recipes, and I've been sharing them with my mom, which is nice.
I love that.
And I'm doing the lemongrass lady. I'll just tell everybody, it's actually on page 95. This is a really great recipe.
Thank you. It's definitely refreshing and subtle but bold at the same time. It's a fun one.
I had never actually tried any matcha tea, so you've inspired me to be a little brave and go into the kitchen and try something new.
I love that. It's always fun to introduce something to someone.
Well, let me ask you, what is your cooking and baking and drink experience? How did you start getting into coffee and tea drinks?
Well, I've always been an experimenter. When I was younger, I used to make potions with my cousins out of random kitchen ingredients. Sometimes they weren't edible. But I've also been part of a family who's been interested in cooking, nothing professional necessarily, but my uncle, we always used to watch the Food Network together. He would bring me into the kitchen and help me or have me help him season whatever he was cooking. So that's where my love for kind of experimenting with food and trying new things in terms of food was kind of sparked. And cooking isn't necessarily my thing, but I gravitated towards drinks for some reason because they could look so much different than food. They could be colorful and they could have fun garnishes. So I don't know, I just gravitated towards that in some way.
And did your parents teach you about new drinks? You were talking about that in your book a little bit. Did they have some time-tested family secret recipes?
Yes. So one of my favorite drinks when I was a kid was our Mexican chocolate that we'd have on Christmas mornings. That is definitely one of the bigger inspirations that I've shown in my book. A lot of times, like a fun thing for us in our family is to have like a little drink before we have breakfast or a little drink before we sit down together. And that really spoke to me and kind of that ritualistic holding a warm cup and talking and laughing was something that really stood out to me. But I didn't realize that until much later. I didn't realize, I didn't take a step back and look at the specialness that comes from just enjoying a drink. And it's kind of the drink equivalent of breaking bread, you know? Um, or pouring a cup, I guess. That's what stood out to me.
Is a family time.
Yes, for sure. Family, friends, people you're just meeting, breaking the ice. That's always been a special moment to me.
Well, could you tell the audience too? You have an eclectic background too.
I
Could you tell
do.
us? That seems to ring through your book too. What is your family background?
So I'm Mexican, Filipino, and Chinese. And that's definitely a big mix when you're coming from two different families, but it's created so much love and so much, I guess, a big mix. That's what I felt my whole life, like all these different cultures, and then the food and beverage that comes with them. So it's family is big and crazy, and we're all over the place. Growing up as a mixed kid was confusing, but I think that this book is one of the places where I kind of really sat down and found common ground between like the flavors of my cultures. It was such a beautiful experience, and it was kind of a therapeutic experience too.
I really got that from your book that it's a very cultural, cross cultural experience. Just even reading through all of your different recipes. And when I heard your name, I was like, I wondered what your nationality was because it's just it's like a cultural anthropology book, kind of.
It is a love letter to like my roots, my family, where I've come from, and that, how my family is here in America, where it's such a melting pot. So it is me through and through.
That's cool. Well, let me ask you, I hadn't actually heard of the home cafe movement, and you talked about that in your intro. Can you tell for the audience, maybe some of us don't know, what is the home cafe trend?
Yes. So the home cafe trend started in South Korea and then kind of branched out to China and Japan. And it was just a video depiction of someone, and it spoke to me. So when I saw the home cafe trend, it was showing me that I could make cafe drinks in my own home. And it spoke to me during the pandemic. And so one of the tenets that I've come to find about the home having a home cafe is that you can do it yourself. It's doable and affordable and it's fun. And it could even be a form of self-care. That's what I found.
And then this has been, you're saying this is trending all across TikTok and Instagram and social media.
Yes, for sure. I saw it being really big in the Korean Instagram space and like Japanese Instagram spaces. And I thought, I don't see anything like that here in America. I I think that would be fun to bring to the States. So I knew that everyone loved coffee and tea here and that it would be something cool to just video, even if it didn't turn into anything.
Well, then let me ask you, because this is one of the questions I really love to ask all the authors is what motivated you to take all this and put it into a book? What was your motivation for this book?
My motivation for this book when starting to write and thinking about ideas for it was showing readers and showing coffee and tea lovers what's possible. I think that with the coffee shop culture, which is great in itself, I love going to coffee shops as well, that we can be creative. We can experiment in our own kitchens with our little cups and our little measuring spoons and all that. We can have fun. We can see what we like and what we might not like. When that itself is paired with something yummy that we all tend to enjoy, like a coffee or tea, that we can have fun any day of the week in our own kitchens. And it doesn't have to be for hours and hours. It can be just for a little 5-minute chunk while we're getting ready for the day. And just the beauty in a drink. And I know it can seem so mundane and so simple or why drinks, but to me, it's that pour, that calming pour, and the cream cascading down the glass, or it's whisking the matcha. It can be therapeutic and kind of a reset for the day and a calming effect.
Well, let me ask you. So, okay, we're all learning here now about the home cafe movement. Can you tell the audience, how do you build your own little home cafe? Where do we start? Like, how easy is it? What's step one?
Step one would definitely be your tools for whatever you like to brew. So if you're into coffee, I definitely think of first what type of coffee you gravitate towards to, whether that be drip coffee or espresso style coffee. Getting that brewing tool would be that first step. And then if you're into tea, you could do a tea kettle and maybe a matcha whisk. And then another, I guess the next step would be to pick your ingredients and your flavors and seeing what you like. Of course, the home cafe gives some great options for recipes that you can start off with, but figuring out maybe what you like, safe options, your safeties, that you can try to experiment with, and then you can grow out to some new drinks. And then, of course, there's the glassware and the aesthetics of it, because that is a big part of the home cafe trend, the aesthetic, the clear glass, and all the fun little extras. It's also, the home cafe also tells you that you can use whatever you have and make that work. If you already have glasses or a mug that you like to use, you can use that. So it is kind of the approach of use what you got, or here's some suggestions for starting your own home cafe from scratch.
Okay, well, I'll jump to that question because I thought it was really interesting in your book. And by the way, since the audience, if they don't have the book yet, you've got lots of really pretty, beautiful pictures in here. And you got these from just, you know, Salvation Army, Goodwill. You picked these up in just thrift shops.
Yeah. Oh, the majority of the glasses and other glassware used in the home cafe photos, which were taken by my awesome photographer, Gabby Jeter, based in Las Vegas. All those glasses were thrifted from Savers, Goodwill, and they were also found at places like Ross and Dollar Tree and IKEA, which tend to have affordable glassware. So these are all hidden gems found in the depths of a Savers. And I wouldn't have it any other way. It's such a great activity to just do maybe on a Saturday or a weekend, and it can be fun to go treasure hunting and seeing what's out there.
Well, what are some, you talked about too, what are some misconceptions about home cafe? Is this hard? Is it from scratch? Does it take a lot of time? You talked about that a little bit in your book.
Yes, so home cafe, it is a recipe book. So when we're thinking of recipes, I tend to think of, oh no, how long is this going to take? I don't have so much time. I want an easy recipe. So the home cafe, it does have recipes for creating like big batches of coffee and big syrups, but it doesn't always have to be from scratch pre-made. There's a lot of recipes in the book. Let's say there's a passion fruit syrup recipe. It has the how to make it from scratch, but you can also buy the syrup online or pick it up at a local store that has the syrup. Um, so it doesn't have to be 10 minutes on the stove sitting there. You can just pick it up from the store and pump it out when you're ready to use it and be ready to go. So it can be customizable from the standpoint that maybe you don't have time. Maybe you're an on the go person. And so it's kind of has recipes for everyone.
Well, let me ask you, how is like a home cafe experience different versus a coffee shop? What do you think?
A home cafe experience versus a coffee shop experience is more personal, of course. We get to be in the comfort of our own home. We can stay in our pajamas and leave on our fuzzy socks. But it is customizable. So a lot of times a problem that I come across in coffee shops is that maybe it's too sweet or not sweet enough and I have to ask to add more. But when we're in our home cafe, we can experiment with what we like and learn about what flavors we maybe like or don't like, or we can adjust the sweetness ourselves. And I think to me, that's the appeal of making a drink in the morning and being able to create new flavors. And
Well, you inspired me because I went to Publix. Everybody knows what Publix is.
uh-huh.
And you talked about in your book, I hadn't even noticed it before, the milk frother.
Yes, the milk
And
frother.
can you tell me more about it? I picked one up. It was right there on the shelf.
Yes, they're becoming more and more accessible these days. Before, a few years ago, they were something that you could only get online. And now, yeah, they're everywhere because I think the making your drinks at home trend has become so big. But so the milk frother, basically, one of my favorites is the handheld frother that's battery powered. It's quick, the cleanup is easy, and it can really create that fluffy, foamy, frothy goodness that we want in a home cafe that we can get really only in a coffee shop. So that's my one of my favorite tools and one of the essentials that's part of creating your home cafe.
I was so surprised. You know, you inspired me because I just picked up a matcha drink because they frothed it at the coffee shop. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go try this because I love tea. And I picked this up, and this was so easy to use. I was just really surprised.
Yes.
And yeah, battery powered. I just put it in. I was like, okay, brought my mom. I'm like, okay, let's try this. And I used some almond milk, and it worked great.
Yeah, even with the alternative plant-based milks, it still like works. You might have to do it for 10 more seconds, but other than that, it's the perfect little tool.
Okay, so we got to get into some recipes. What are your top three favorites recipes and why?
Alrighty. So the spiced honey coffee. And that's mostly because it's an easy recipe. You can make the syrup in your in the bottom of your own mug basically. So it starts off with honey and then it continues with a little bit of vanilla and then some clove. And then you just pour your drip coffee, whether that be hot or iced, right over that instantaneous syrup. And you can top it with creamer if you'd like. That's for anyone, whether you're in a hurry or just want to cozy up on the couch. One of my other favorite coffees is the toasted marshmallow iced coffee or the campfire iced coffee in the book. And it is one of my all time favorites. And I dedicate that recipe to my mom because a long time ago, she had a toasted marshmallow latte and she was always looking for the syrup after. We would go to all these different stores for weeks to try to find the syrup. And we did finally find it at World Market. But then when I started Home Cafe, I was like, I need to make this for my mother. I need to, so she could have it at home. Um, and then the campfire iced coffee was born. That takes toasted marshmallows, vanilla, a little bit of salt, and some sugar, and heats it all up right until the marshmallows disintegrate. And that's the toasted marshmallow syrup. And you can add it to iced coffee with a little bit of creamer, or just play around with it. You could add it to a latte. It's the syrup is very versatile itself.
Okay, give me another coffee.
Another coffee would be the Be Bold brew. That's one of my favorites. It's inspired by my childhood drink, Mexican chocolate, and it takes the spices of like chili powder and cinnamon, along with some chocolate sauce, combines it together to make like a chili temperature and like a chili because it is cold brew, kind of crazy combination that is really interesting to me because you enjoy Mexican chocolate hot, but this one kind of flips that on its head and puts it in a chili cold brew. So
I
that's one
don't
of my favorites too.
I don't think we'd ever find anything that cool in a coffee shop.
There's definitely some artisanal flavors in coffee shops, but yeah, home cafe is like a place to really experiment and have fun and not to be afraid.
I'm actually a tea person. I've always enjoyed the smell of coffee, but I don't know. I wish I loved it. My mom loves it.
Mhm.
So I'm the tea crowd. So let's talk about some of your favorite tea recipes.
Some of my favorite tea recipes, starting with the matcha, is the La Vie en Rose latte. That's one of my favorites because it introduces the flavor of matcha, and it also incorporates the aromatic of the rose, and then it's grounded by the flavor of vanilla. In development, that recipe was kind of tricky because I originally had just the rose and just the matcha. So a rose matcha latte. I'm like, I don't know, something's missing. There needs to be a connection. And that vanilla, that familiar flavor that we all know and love, most of us, kind of bridged that gap and brought it all together to become like light and grounding that kind of rose flavor that can kind of float out there. So that's one of my favorite matchas too.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to try that one next. Um, okay, another one.
Another one would be the one that you have, the lemongrass lady. It's delicate and subtle, but it's also kind of grounding and vegetal a little bit. And it's fun to use in a sweet way because it's usually used in more savory dishes like curries and marinades and soups. So finding a place for lemongrass in a drink and a kind of a sweet drink if you like it sweet was fun to play with, fun to try and work out. So what sweetener are you using in your lemongrass lady?
Actually,
If
I
you're
just
using any.
I didn't. The matcha tea that I got, and I'll ask you about the different matcha teas too. It already had some sweetener in it. Brand I had happened to pick up, so I put that, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna make some almond milk because I did that the other day, and then I put a whole bunch of wheatgrass in. Not wheatgrass, sorry. I didn't mean to say that because I like wheatgrass too. I'm sorry, I put lemongrass in. Maybe wheatgrass might be good too. I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. We just invented a new recipe.
Yep.
Um, and so I put it all together and I mixed it up. I'm like, I'm going to get experimental and get brave. And it turned out
I
really
love
good.
it.
That lemongrass just smells heavenly.
Yes, it's such like it is subtle, but it does have that little punch of like, oh, what is that? Because usually in American cuisine, it's not always used so nonchalantly or in a tea necessarily. So to have that paired with like the newness of the matcha and like the earthiness of the matcha is such an interesting combination. So that's awesome.
So I was like, I'm just going to be brave and go for it. And, you know, if you're afraid of trying something, it's like, what are you afraid of? It's only tea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the beauty. And it's in your kitchen. No harm, no foul. It's a fun little experiment.
If it doesn't work out, you can always try another one.
Exactly.
Practice again. Okay, what about any black teas or white tea recipes in your book?
Some of my favorite black tea recipes, one of my favorites, is the sunny side. So that one is a tea spritzer recipe, and it uses English breakfast, fresh blood orange juice, and tonic water. That one was super fun to experiment with. Not to mention, it's beautiful. It has a blood orange slice slid down the side of the glass to create that stained glass look. And it's kind of that bitterness. It is that fresh orange flavor that is kind of deeper from the blood orange. And it has that quinine taste of tonic water. So it is an interesting one for sure and one of my favorites for black tea.
I love black tea.
It's
That's
it's yeah, it's such a special, it's a tried and true classic, I feel. You can't go wrong.
now there was one in your book, and I got some lavender too, and I did a matcha lavender. Um, I never knew lavender could be a herb to go into much of anything. That's kind of really Americans are really not used to that.
Kind of like something that you see in lotions and you see in like bubble baths. And so when I was learning more about teas and different combinations and just tasting things in general, I was like, you know what? there's edible lavender. Let's put that in a syrup. Let's put that in a tea. Especially if you're into herbal, more aromatic flavors like rose and lavender. Those can be really interesting in drinks you already know and love, like that blueberry lavender tea latte. So, kind of pairing that unfamiliar lavender with the classic blueberry, those are the combinations that speak to me the most and interest me the most.
How did you come up with these combinations?
It was definitely a lot of experimenting, and I think one of the phrases that's around, I was like, the audacity, someone who has the audacity to do to combine things like that. But I don't know. I just I kind of have a preconception in my mind of what might work together, and then I let it sit in the back of my mind, or I write it down, put it up on the fridge, and then I look at it maybe for a few weeks, and I'm like, oh, I still think it's a good idea. I'll try it now. I'll experiment. I'll put it all together. So it's kind of just randomly. Sometimes these flavor combinations, they just, I'm eating dinner and I have to get my phone really quick to write them down. So honestly, I couldn't say. But of
Well,
course, taking classic combinations too, like from desserts and flavors that I'm familiar with, like guava, and venturing out with those.
well, that's true. I've become a fan of the Great British Baking Show, and the lady, I think it was this last season, she was Asian, and the judges kept commenting on the unique flavors and combinations she was using was just phenomenal.
Hmm. Definitely. I love Great British Bake Off too. And I think something that I've experienced being from a Chinese background, Filipino background, Mexican background, is that a lot of times in Asian cuisine and in Filipino and maybe Chinese cuisine as well, we don't do a lot of dairy combinations. It's more fruity and it's more light. Me being from what I like, I love creamy things, and but I love like the Chinese flavors of like fruity flavors and not necessarily mixed with milk.
You know, these unique combinations from all these Asian cultures are just phenomenal, and they're really new to an American audience. And how do you like come up with these combinations, or is it just something you grew up with?
I think one of the biggest things that inspired the recipes that are in the home cafe is kind of my experience in general. Like the Asian flavors don't necessarily include milk, but they focus on a lot of fruits and a lot of kind of non-dairy combinations. So to me, combining the fruitiness with a milk or a fruitiness with a sparkling water is so interesting to me. And I think that thinking, you know what, I we can try it. We can see what happens is something that has fostered the growth of these recipes in the book. It's definitely been, oh, I don't know if that's going to work. We'll try it anyways. Oh, wait, it's pretty good. We just need a few tweaks and it'll be set. So that's kind of the process that I've gone through um, when taking these flavors from my culture and my background.
Well, what are some fun extra or tips people can learn from us today for your to making their own drinks from your books and just going out and experimenting?
I think one of the major fun extras, of course, like I mentioned before, is the aesthetic of home cafe. You can't go wrong. It's kind of what got the home cafe trend started to begin with. It's watching the milk cascade down the glass. It's seeing the syrup flow down the ice cubes in a nice coffee video. So you can achieve that aesthetic with fun ice molds that they have. They're all over now. They're at the grocery store. They're at Target. They're at Dollar Tree, and then of course glassware. That is a big part of home cafe as well. Whether that be a champagne flute that you enjoy your iced coffee in, or a wine glass, or even a martini glass, because why not? And you're at home. And the next step is to really just have fun. Because one of the things that I talk about in my book, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is too metaphorical, but it's that you can do what you want to do. And I know it's kind of like, oh yeah, you're talking about coffee. You could do what you want to do. Of course you can. But it's bigger than that. It's kind of our first thing that we do in the day. It's get that coffee or get that cup of tea. And if we want to experiment in some other part of our life, like why not start with our coffee? Why not have fun with something so mundane as our morning drink? And that's kind of where I start in home cafe, because why not? It's fun and creative.
And you connect with people.
Exactly. Connect with people. You can make something for your partner, your brother, your sister, your mom. And it can be a beautiful thing. And seeing their face try the drink or be like, you know what, let's try something else. Let's do it together. That can be a connection that is so priceless.
Something that you'll always remember.
Exactly.
Well, Asia, it's been a pleasure having you here on this show, because the irony is my idea for this podcast channel started because a gentleman I interviewed for another book was from England, and we were sitting there in the morning, and we were talking about a cup of tea that we were having. And we started the podcast with a cup of tea, and then we got to the bottom of our drink, and that was the end.
That's so beautiful and so special.
And that's what that's what inspired the concept for this podcast channel, was starting with a drink.
That's so great.
A drink of your choice, and then we end with our final sip. Well, Asia, you said that now you're doing this full time.
Yes.
What is your next big project? What are you up to?
Well, I'm working on some commission work. This home cafe trend has turned into something that I never thought I could do. I am creating video content and photograph content for brands. Currently, that's what I'm working on, and getting to tap into that side of who I am and doing that professionally has been really cool and very, very kind of out of body. I never thought I'd be in this space here in my life now. I'm also working on some menu development for maybe possibly restaurants and cafes. And that's something I didn't know would be a possibility either. So home cafe has taken me places that I never thought. And of course, continuing with my students, my psychology students that I tutor, I love meeting new people, teaching them about the wonderful field of psychology, and I am so excited to continue doing that this year.
That's awesome. So we have you right at the beginning of your career, don't we?
I guess so.
You'd be famous someday. Be like, yes, I started with this little podcast called Sunday Coffee.
And you know what? It's the perfect one for me, because what's more perfect than Sunday coffee and talking about drinks and talking about fun and creativeness.
That's right. Well, for everybody out there today, I'm going to tell them about your book again. They can find it, of course, online and at your publisher. It's called The Home Cafe: Creative Recipes for Espresso, Matcha, Tea, and Coffee Drinks by Asia Lui Chapa, published by Page Street Publishing Company in 2022. Thank you so much for being here today, Asia.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful to discuss drinks and life and all this with you. So I appreciate it.
We'll do a little cheers across the internet.
Cheers.
Cheers.